Hello. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matt Knight, the founder of the Arizona Technology Advisors. We're a group of non-competing IT services companies that support different disciplines, and as a way to showcase some of our members, which range from representatives of national firms as well as sole entrepreneurs, we are starting a podcast called the A to Z Tech Podcast. So, welcome to our first episode. Today, I have joining me Jim Hall and Eric Nobel. We'll get into a little bit more about what they do and how they got to their careers today, and start with a few questions. So, Jim, I'll come to you first.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about your background, just a career trajectory and timeline of how you got into tech, and we'll stop right when you get to like the company you work for today.
Sounds good. So I've always been interested in technology. Going back in college, I was a musician and used to work in the AV department. So we did spotlight, stage lighting, audio mixing, that kind of thing. And after college, I moved out to California and got a job with an AV company and worked with them for a number of years. We did a lot of audio, video shows. Through that, I ended up transferring out to Phoenix, same company, and then eventually got into IT sales, which had a component of communications in it. We were selling some Cisco phone systems, and from that I got into the communications and the phone system side,
Okay.
which leads me pretty much up to today.
Right to where you are. And so I would like bringing you two together because there was some overlap in terms of background in what you do today. So Eric, tell me a little bit, same question. What was your career path like from kind of getting into tech? What led you there and up to where you are today?
So, interestingly, a lot of people don't know I'm 100 years old. Not really. When I was in high school in 1975, my guidance counselor said, electronics, get into electronics. And a lot of people, and back then, electronics wasn't really a big thing yet. So I grew up in Wisconsin, very rural Wisconsin. So I decided the best thing for me to get into that was to go into the Navy. So I went into the Navy, became a sonarman, which is the people that looks for submarines. But actually spent most of our time talking to whales. And then learned electronics because we repaired our own equipment. Did that for a number of years. Got out of the Navy, went into equipment leasing. So I worked for a company that did equipment lease financing, all kinds of electronics, stuff like that. Then I created my own company that did that for 10 years. And then that ended with 9/11 because everybody stopped doing anything. And because of your sole proprietorship, you don't really have the reserves. But during that time, I worked with Amphenol's and KSU's old type phone equipment. Learned all about that aspect. Yes, learned all about that aspects of the world. Went to work for some years later for Quest Corp here in Arizona, which became CenturyLink, which became Lumen, and worked for Lumen for about 10 years. Decided to go out into the channel side of the world, which is the part of the world that isn't direct with Lumen, but works with a lot of different providers, and decided to create my own company because I felt like either I could work with a company that I found out after I left Lumen, there were so many other things out there. So I have always had the philosophy either complain or compete.
Right.
And I decided competing was a better way to serve my customers.
Excellent. Yeah, I think one of the things that I really try to bring together in the Arizona Tech Advisor Group are people that truly are passionate about serving their customers. And the reason the group came together was because in our individual roles, we may not be able to solve all the problems that our customers trying to solve today, but through our network and through people we learn to get to know and trust, we can make some trusted referrals. So you mentioned 10 years at Lumen. What was the longest amount of time you were with one organization, Jim?
That would be right now. I'm going on 11 years with Crexendo.
Excellent. 10 years Lumen, 11 years Crexendo. I think I did almost 8.5 years with my prior employer. We were a reseller, and I thought kind of the same thing as you, Eric. I can only do so much here. And I know there's opportunities to solve problems with customers with things that are outside of my bag of tricks, right? So that's where I started connecting with folks like you. So Jim, I think we'll come back to you for Crexendo. Tell me a little bit about what the organization does and kind of where your focus is personally in terms of vertical, company size, that type of thing.
Sure. Just a real brief history of Crexendo. The guy who got it all going, Steve Mahalo, just retired a couple of years ago, but he formed a company called Intertel, and Eric's probably very familiar with Intertel. They were one of the largest providers of phone service at one point in time, grew quite large, and was acquired by Mitel. And that started a whole chain of events. At the time, Intertel was just about to come out with a hosted voice over IP phone system. So a phone system where you didn't have to have the big box in your closet, in your network.
Yeah.
And when Mitel acquired them, they said, we don't care about that. We're going nowhere with that. So the birth of Crexendo and hosted voice over IP. As far as the background of the services we provide, it's hosted voice over IP, or what has now become unified communications as a service. So it encompasses not only the phones, but texting and email and faxing, and pretty much any way that you can communicate is now under one big umbrella. And then add to that contact center solutions. So that's where we're at today, is unified communications and contact center solutions with AI.
Excellent. Cool. Thanks for that background. We'll come back.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I think so. Well, no, I left the part about where's your focus? What's the vertical focus, and what is size organizations that you target?
So one of the things that I've always enjoyed about this unified communications and contact center is every business uses a phone system.
Right.
So as far as verticals, we cover it all. There's definitely some that are more dependent on their communications. Schools, for instance, very dependent on the communications. But you name it. We work across the country and beyond. I work anywhere in the U.S. and any vertical.
Excellent. Okay, so great. You got kind of an open go for it. Let's talk to anyone. And I know, Eric, it's the same for you, true, right? Anyone that has a need, let's figure out what it is. So tell me a little bit about business IT solutions and what, the areas of focus that you have. I know this can address a lot of different places. So.
With that, I want to add a caveat.
Okay.
In all of our meetings, I always started out with, I do everything that the other members in our group do not do. So if in this conversation we touch upon something that another member does or a future member does, please make sure that you work with the person that does that directly. So Business IT Solutions was formed with the idea of just being able to provide customers with a solutions that they didn't have to go find. So I work with over 340 providers across the world with all types of technology. So the main thing that I look at is giving my customers the ability to say, hey, Eric, I need this, and they don't have to go interview 5 or 6 or 7 providers to find a solution that actually fits what they're looking to accomplish. So I will then return to them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 providers that have those solutions in place with appropriate pricing and appropriate solutions. We will then take that to the next step and have them actually interview the ones that they select for that technological solution.
So give me a little bit of what are the main categories that you're typically addressing with your customers?
Main categories that I'm typically addressing, of course, always backup connectivity. Customers are always looking for, my system goes down, a backhoe cuts my fiber, whatever it might be. How do I get that so that I can have a backup for it? And then it's also, how do I replace my copper? Because copper is becoming a huge expense for companies today. And so they're trying to figure out how to get around that. And then along with that, of course, we do the normal things that you expect, cybersecurity, your data storage, those types of things, but not, as I said earlier, in the way that some of your more, we'll call it conventional data centers are. We work more with the advanced cloud storage and those types of things. and then private networks, and then managed device, mobile device, because that's a big thing for companies too. They simply have either they're a small company, they don't know what to do with all of the computers and phones and iPads, and do I have them use their own and hope that it doesn't get a bug? Do I have them use ours and then I got to manage it? So we also help them manage their mobile devices too. Well, we don't do it, obviously. We have providers that do it.
Excellent. So I think I've heard a theme from customers in the past that, at a certain size, in a small organization, they're not getting a whole lot of attention from certain vendors. They may really have to try hard to get those vendors to engage with them if they even want that solution. That may be because sometimes those solutions are outside of what typically we would assume their budget for that type of product would be. And so you have a path to essentially say, hey, I know you want this premium backup, solution, but here are some alternatives that might align better, and then have those relationships. I think that could be a huge value add for customers. The other thing that I heard from customers was, when I have a need, I don't love that I have to interview so many people or tell so many people the same thing, let alone keep track of what I've told each of those vendors to get an equal bid. So I really see the value in how you can be that conduit to say, all right, I heard you once, now I can tell that story to 3 or 4 different vendors and help them come back to you. So that takes a lot of time off of
my statement for that is, I give my customers one back to pat.
Yeah, right. Not a throat to choke, a back
Exactly.
to pat. Yep. That's a good move. Yeah, because otherwise you have a negative connotation. You're like, you won't have to choke me, trust me.
Yes, yep, you're going to pat my back and go, thank you. That made that so much easier.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, Jim, you mentioned, UCaaS, Unified Communication as a Service, and you mentioned kind of the omni-channel of accessibility. Tell me a little bit about how you're seeing that utilized by customers, or what problems that you're able to solve in that area. Because I think that's a place where I just feel like the next generation doesn't want to pick up the phone and make a phone call anymore, right? So now there's all these other ways to try to engage with a company. How does Crexendo help with that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So the key thing, and we talked about it earlier, but the key thing that we keep hearing on the news and throughout technology, AI.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it's being used is very interesting, and some of the basics that we've been using for years that you don't really think about. Web chat is one of them, where it's much more advanced with AI now.
What do you mean there's not a group of people waiting to web chat with everyone that reaches
there
out?
Are, however, now they can handle the tougher problems.
Sure.
And get rid of the day-to-day. So, for instance, with our omni-channel contact center, what you typically have is a web chat through AI initially. Mm-hmm. And then depending on how much the AI has learned, or if the caller wants to tap out, give me a live person, this is driving me crazy, whatever, that's always available. So it allows the person calling in to get right to the point, and if it's being serviced, great. If they need to talk to someone, they can. When I work with businesses, I like to poll them and just get a little feel for how they operate, what they use, what they don't use, and just kind of get in my own mind what the trends are. And you mentioned, the audience and the targets. The younger the crowd, the less apt they are to talk with someone, answer a call, listen to voicemail. They love texting. Yeah. So that's another mode of communication with contact centers now. They've got people handling multiple text conversations at one time. The web chat, email is still hanging in there. And believe it or not, faxes are still alive.
Yeah. Thanks, medical industry. That's old news. We can move on.
Yeah, it's moving away, but it's still there. But those are really the main channels. And then, of course, video and just audio conferences as well.
Okay. That's excellent. So he said it first, AI. Tell us a little bit about how AI is playing into your conversations, what you're hearing from customers when it comes to where can they integrate AI? Like, where are you seeing that seem to pick up?
Well, as I'm sure all three of us know, AI has been around for a long time, but most of us hadn't heard the letters AI until about a year ago, and then all of a sudden it was everywhere. And it's growing so quickly that companies are trying to figure out, how do I engage this without risking my security? How do I use the various, I won't name specific products, but the products that have actual access into my computers while at the same time keeping those computers safe? So that's the conversation that we're having. And the main thing about it, even if you had that conversation yesterday, tomorrow it could be different. Tomorrow something's changed, something bigger has come out, something better has happened. When you look at what the deepfake videos used to look like, and you look at them now, you're just like, wow, I can't tell that's not fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine that works in the financial industry. They used to have phone calls with their customers. Now they can't rely on those. Then they went to video calls. Now they can't rely on those. They're trying to figure out, what do they use without actually having a customer drive 200 miles to their office as a viable AI solution. So that's one of the big things when it comes to AI that we work with. And of course, part of my world is I use AI every day, all day. Somebody comes to me and says, hey, I need ABC. I go into my AI solutions, which has all of my 340 customers in it. And I say, 340 providers in it. And I say, this is what I'm looking for. And the system will come back and give me the best possible answers for it.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's a great point. Like, we can use the technology to help us find the technology to solve the problem that we're trying to address. Oh man, it's going to be a weird circle someday when we're just.
And one thing I'll add to that,
I can just do that myself. Thank you for reaching out to me.
One thing I'll add to that is, with everything else, some people will say GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. With AI, I say gold in, gold out. Because if you're doing it right and using it right, AI is gold.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefit and value. And I think a lot of organizations are just trying to figure out, how do I be agile enough to know, like you said, it's going to happen. Something new is going to come out. Can we produce enough return on investment from the idea we have today, or the automation that we want to implement today, or this robotic process to take something off of our plates? What is the business case for doing that? And as you guys know, I've continued to expand the network in Arizona Tech Advisors and find partners that can help with that as well. So it's fun to have these conversations and understand, see behind the scenes with different companies. I think that's what I really enjoy about what we've decided to do as independent consultants, and working in the tech space and working with various customers. You get to know a little bit about these different companies that you work with over time, and see a story. And then you can sometimes see that similar thing in other places. Maybe it goes in different industries. My next question is going to be about a particular customer or project that you worked on, without naming any names, obviously. But to give us a little bit of a taste for, what are some of the more innovative or exciting projects that felt passionate to you, that you were able to have an outcome for your customer?
Because I know he's going to splice this. So I have one more thing in reference to customers and technology. The theory used to be, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. That's not the case anymore. I am finding out more and more every day, you cannot rely on that old axiom, because just because it's not broke doesn't mean there isn't a better way to do it. It doesn't mean that it's not exposed to the bad guys out there that have figured out your technology that has protected you for however long and has worked however well. So again, you can't go with the axiom, if it's not broke, don't fix it, because you will end up having a bigger, as you had just indicated, cost in a lot of cases by ignoring your technology than you will by keeping it updated in today's world.
I love that. My full-time job is with an organization that helps put a cost to IT. So you can see the fully loaded total cost of ownership for an application or a service. And that is, I really struggled for years helping organizations break the status quo. Like, it's not okay to keep doing it just because that's how you've done it for so long. And now I can finally provide the data to show them why that's going to become a problem, because support costs are going to increase. the labor resource cost is going to increase. If you don't start modernizing your technology stack, it's going to cost you more money and it's going to deliver less value, right? So you're right on it with that. I definitely appreciate that.
Well, and the integration of the different technologies too has become such a major deal too, where you used to say, I need to solve this problem, I use this solution, and this problem uses this one and this one. But you find yourself as a worker going back and forth between all these, where now everything's becoming very well integrated, where it's now a single workflow. And, we use the term single pane of glass, where you may have 3 sets of software you use, but now they're integrated and they're using the same screen. You don't have to flip between tabs of a browser or applications. So there's definitely a lot of efficiency, and who knows where it's going next. I mean, you talked about the security concern about AI. We're using AI for security in many different applications, but who knows where AI is going next? I mean, it's really interesting. Back to your point, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke,
it's going to be
okay.
broke soon,
you
right?
need to look at it.
Be prepared.
And you're getting behind your competition if you're not. If you don't stay up on what's the latest and greatest, what's the trend?
One of my favorite axioms is, if you're not growing, you're dying. And it kind of leads me to, man, I'm losing track of the question I asked. We'll come back to it. But the idea of, in tech, we are constantly having to learn something new to stay abreast of what's going on. What strategies do you use, Eric, to kind of keep ahead of the hot topics in the industry?
So my providers have monthly or weekly meetings, and I am going through there and selecting. Generally, I'm in roughly 10 of those meetings a week, just keeping up on the technologies, what's changing, what's happening, what's new, what is replacing what, because that's the only way that I can do it. And then relying on the engineers, the people that spend all day, every day, and getting myself certified, taking certification classes so that when I'm talking to a customer, I have some knowledge of what it was and what it is, and some cases what it's going to be. And that's really the only thing that you can do. And again, that's what my customers can't do. They don't have the time to attend 10 meetings a week and listen to new technology or to get certifications on new technology.
Yeah.
They just simply can't. They would like to,
Sure,
but they can't.
I joke around like a CIO's job is probably just to take meetings and learn half the time. They're not actually able to go and proactively go and learn things. It happens organically through these conversations with their partners, their existing partners, new vendors that are trying to show them an opportunity that they can harness and take advantage of, or by delegating and using their team and having these specialties within an organization. And that works in a big company, but in a smaller organization, it's really incumbent on that leader to just know a little bit about enough things. That's why we all exist, right? That's what we're trying to help them, is you can delegate to us.
Well, and that's one of the things I also run into a lot is you talk about a larger organization having a larger IT staff, but the problem is they're still spread so thin that when you look at laptops, cell phones, connectivity, they're just trying to keep the ship afloat.
Yeah.
They rarely have time to figure out how to rig new sails or really try to chart a new course for the ship that would not take them through rocky waters. They're just trying to, even though they're a large company.
Keep it going.
Yeah, they just have enough staff to keep it afloat.
Yeah. Let's go back to you. I think the question I asked him, like, how do you stay up on technology? What are the things that you're subscribed to or following?
So our organization has a sales engineering team that puts on bi-monthly lunch and learns.
Oh, cool.
So they're always bringing up new topics. If it's a new technology that we're introducing, the last one we had was last week, and we just reviewed other technologies or ways that it had changed within the market. I stay up on some trade journals. I always go over and hang out with our support team and see what are people calling about? What are the troubles? What are they looking for? What are the solutions they're looking for? Because that's really, I feel my job as a solutions provider and trying to fit, If you're dealing in unified communications, you can talk to a lot of companies, and it's just how many seats do you have? Do you need voicemail? We're shipping the phones tomorrow. Have a nice day. And really, there's so much to it with software integration with CRMs and click to dial and so many things you can do. So I'm always talking to the sales engineers and the support team to learn. And if I have a customer or prospect ask me a question, I'll typically go search out the answer and bring it back to them, even if it may be something that I should just be sending them to support, because I want to know, because someone else is going to ask the same question. And it also, all of us know it'll quite often that answer will have other applications and the bells will go off. Same way when I'm having a discussion with prospective customer and we're doing that discovery and what are you using now and what problems are you trying to solve and how does this work? I try to present things as somewhat generically at first and have them come up with a use case. I may throw a couple little use cases out there as teasers, and inevitably, if they're of that mindset, they'll say, "Can I use it for this?" And it's like, I never thought of that. Yes, that's brilliant. Let's play with that.
You're getting me right to where I want to go next, or where I led us to previously. Like, tell me about like a problem or a solution that you were able to deliver for a customer's problem.
I'll give you two real brief ones.
Okay.
One real simple. There's a feature for voicemail reminders. So you've got after hours on-call service people. After hours, typically they use an answering service, which can be costly and not always dependable, or cell phones, company cell phones that get passed around or whatever. Just using voicemail reminders, we set calls that are urgent and after hours to a separate voicemail box with reminders that will remind by text, phone call, and or email every 5 to 30 minutes until somebody listens to that message.
Okay.
So it's more dependable than an answering service, and it's going to hound that person until they answer it. So just quick, easy feature. It's free, and it's going to save them probably a few $100s a month at minimum. A larger one, I've got a business processes organization that's overseas. They handle all kinds of different services for their customers. Most of their customers are in the U.S. One of the more interesting uses they have is they run a loading dock for a large bottling plant that you'd be familiar with the name. And the truck drivers are not allowed to line up inside or even outside of the loading dock gates.
Okay.
They have to call in advance when they're within a certain mileage, and they will be allowed to get in the queue and the gates will open. Well, that's all done remotely through texting, so SMS and phone calls.
Okay.
So they've got a call center that's handling, Joe's up here next. And we
kind of like when you go to a restaurant and you check in and then you're on the text message list, you kind of wait your turn, go sit out and try to pass the time and yeah, okay, that's
Send you the
interesting.
text, you're next.
Yeah, and the same sort of thing I think about a burrito making chain where you order online, but their drive-through isn't actually an order drive-through anymore. It's just a pickup drive-through, right? So you have your order in and you kind of wait there until they say yours is ready, and then you hop in the line. So same sort of thing. It's pretty amazing that the technology in what would be considered a contact center solution is integrating right into that type of offering.
Yeah, and across the ocean. As well.
Okay.
Different time zones, all that goes away.
Cool. Very good. Eric, you got anything that comes to mind when it comes to solving a problem?
And one of my things that I do is I try not to name the specific provider because that can change through time. But I have a customer that I was talking about where they were looking for backup for their main circuit. Their main circuit went down. How can they get this backed up? And they had 120 locations across the United States. So the solution we put together for them was 5G cellular with multi-SIM agnostic capability, meaning that if their system went down, it would look for what was the best provider of 3 at that specific time, rather than just having one. And if for some reason that one's having an issue because maybe they were on the same fiber line that got cut, It gave them the ability to have the system automatically select the best one instantly. And then we used a secondary backup system for the locations that didn't have that capability for what we shall call low orbit satellite connectivity. And that gave them the ability to have that as an alternative. They preferred the cellular because it was less expensive, but they had to have the other because of areas that just didn't have that connectivity availability for them. Now, that included the installation of all of the antennas, the installation of all of the systems. And a lot of people don't know on the low satellite solutions, if you try to do that individually, you have to get separate billing on each one of the locations. If you do it through my provider, all the billing is done through the provider, so you don't have to go through that, and all of your systems are coordinated. And we also put in with that an SD-WAN solution for that switchover as they needed it. So for the customer, instead of having to try to figure out, now I got to talk to somebody in Albuquerque, and I got to talk to somebody in Florida, and I got to talk to, get each one of these different providers to try to set this up for me, it was all done through one back to Pat.
Yeah, one back to Pat. That's awesome. So resiliency was the key there, right?
Mhm.
This company just could operate the way that they could manage it themselves, but to carry all that contracts and billing, and then the installation and setup to have that resiliency would have probably, if they tried to do that themselves, taken them too much time where they could have risked the business during that time.
Yes.
Right. So that's fantastic. And, as a small business owner myself, like I try to do everything myself, create my website, create my own accounting process. I'm doing all these things, but sure, I recognize that there's a point where it's worth the investment because it's going to take enough off of my plate. And I think you're mentioning by going through a provider that can support the scale. Sometimes when there's enough scale, the price comes back down. You're getting that economy to a place where it's like, well, this is cheaper than what if I would have done it myself. And that's something I'm learning, and it's exciting to have partners that can help with organizations of different sizes because a lot of what I work in is an enterprise sales focus. I'm working with organizations that are quite large, but I have a lot of relationships with organizations that are much smaller. So having resources in the Arizona Tech Advisor Group to be able to point them to when I'm like, ooh, you don't want to buy our solution. It's going to be the thing that's going to, it's the line item. It's going to be hard to justify. But I know there's a path here that somebody can help you with the incremental steps that'll get you to a place where we will be ready. You will be ready for us, and we'll be ready for you. So that's fantastic.
Recurring theme of resources too. It's amazing. Someone had shared a study with me 10 years ago. Most people, if they were shopping for something technologically related, they would spend about 70% of their research on the phone and 30% on the internet, and it's completely flipped. It's now 70% on the internet and 30% on the phone.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's less than that, right?
Yeah. Particularly among our clientele,
probably
CIOs, CTOs. And it's really been interesting because that's where a group like this is very important to me because we don't spend much money on marketing. We're not on the billboards and the cover of the trade journals and that. So it comes down to other people knowing about us and sharing that information. And a group like Technology Advisors really being key. And now the customer spends even less time on the phone and on the internet. They just call you up and you say, oh, yeah, we've got Eric and Jim and all these guys. So
that actually leads me to one of the things that I wanted to bring up is in our group, we definitely look for those opportunities where we have a shared client or there's an opportunity for us to collaborate to solve a problem. Have you guys talked about where's the collaboration between your organizations? Is it something that you already know the path?
About getting together for lunch and
good
and being able to really kick that into gear.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I stand back and I know each individual person that's considering joining the group, and I have to learn about them to make sure if they do join the group that there's not going to be a conflict of interest and there's not going to be this overlap in services. So I've got a really good understanding of who's who, but for each of you, we meet once a month, right? And that's that. If you don't take it upon yourself to go and have those conversations and look for those opportunities to collaborate, you're missing out on some of the value. So I thank you guys for taking that initiative yourselves, and I know that you've done it with a few other people, and you as well, with people that have stayed in the group, and then people that have left, and we're like, yeah, it's okay. We still have those relationships that we can go to if someone in our group can't solve our customers' problems.
It's kind of in step with, sorry, Eric, with learning about our own technologies and keeping up to date in the lunch and learns and the things like that, is learning about everyone else's technology, because it's going to help your customers in some way or other. It's going to help even if they're not your customers. But to just establish a new relationship is always beneficial.
Yeah. Well, you've answered one of the questions I was going to ask about, like, what does Arizona Tech Advisors do for you, and like, what value do you see out of it? So thank you for answering that. I'm going to ask you the same, but go ahead with your thought.
This is going to be an insert to my answer to the how this benefited a customer.
Okay.
The insert to the answer to that is that customer, by the way, we were able to not only get them on a cellular plan, but we put them on a pooled cellular plan. So they have 120 locations, which means instead of saying if one site goes down and you need to pay for unlimited data to that site, we gave them 1 gig of data to each of their sites. And if a site goes down, they have 120 gig of data available to cover anything that happens to transmit data for them and to fill in. So
Awesome.
Arizona Tech Advisors has been great from my side of it because the people that are there are so diverse, but yet, as you've said so many times, you're looking for people that are looking to make their customers happy. They're not just there for the dollar. They're there to figure out how can we work together? How can we make this so that when we're talking to each other and we're working on things together, we're making it for each other's customers a better solution. And that's really what I like about the Arizona Tech Advisors, is that camaraderie that comes from it.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. It's been a fun organization to lead, and I feel like we're just getting started. We're just getting to critical mass now. With that said, I'll tell the viewers that we host quarterly events. We invite our customers and prospects to those events as an opportunity to organically network with other practitioners in the space. Most of the time, those are IT, but also business leaders at operations or finance, because there is this overlap of how do we solve the company's challenges, and technology kind of just weaves its way into operations, finance, marketing, all of these people. So if you're a leader in that space, or you're a decision maker, budget holder, and you want to meet others that are doing the same, these events that we host on a quarterly basis, QR code or this website will get you to the event page so you can check it out there. And the lunch and learn thing is something I think we might explore doing. Is the events aren't a sales environment, right? They're a networking environment for our guests, and we're just organically participating in that conversation. And when there's opportunities for us to help, then we have that opportunity to jump in. But the lunch and learns might be an opportunity where we get to present a little bit more on how we solve those challenges. And realistically, I want those to be driven by customers that come to those events. They say, hey, I want to learn more about this. Then we can maybe host a lunch and learn and invite those same people.
Yeah,
so keep that in mind. Let's talk about
it for them.
Yeah,
for the next event. Just
awesome.
Make it a little bit of a formal survey.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
That would be great.
One more thought. Thank you guys for the time. The next event we're working on, I'll throw out there, I think is going to be May 15th. The date's coming together. The venues are coming together. Haven't locked anything in yet, so I don't want to say it on camera, so to speak. But we're going to do a Bring Your Kid to Networking Day event. So we're looking for professionals in that have college age, career development stage, maybe post-high school for sure, I think is the ideal, 18 and up type of age range, into young professionals. So maybe 18 to 28 would be 30. It's hard to cut it off at any certain point, but realistically, I'm looking for people that want to come and network and then bring someone to show them what it's like to be in that business networking environment. And I've got a bit of an agenda in mind with an icebreaker, some tabletop exercise to really get things going. But the goal is that everyone will leave there with making a new connection to someone in someone else's network from the event. So I'm excited for that one. Like I said, May 17th or 15th. Wow. Stick with one date. May 15th is what we're looking at. So I'm looking forward to having you guys help out with that.
Certainly.
Great.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to
It'll be
it.
a lot of fun.
And thank you for having us for this. I really appreciate it and being able to share what we do and to talk about Arizona Tech Advisors.
Yeah, it's going to be great getting everybody a chance to come in here and talk a little bit about themselves. I think it's important for us to know who's who, not just what they sell, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Thank you. And thank you, Eric.